Welcome to the podcast After Hours. It's been a busy weekend, and I don't think I have the inspiration or headspace to put together a full produced episode. So I figured I'd do an After Hours, call it good, put this up even early in exchange for next Saturday's episode. And I have to change ukulele strings, so I thought I would put up the mic and change my strings here on my desk and just talk story with you folks. I started putting up some YouTube shorts and reels and stuff on some of the different social medias. And one of the clips that I put was from an old changing strings video where on this spruce top Morbetta, I just cut the strings at full tension with the nail clippers. And so far it seems like the one that's doing the very best out of all of them. But that's sort of an extreme case, not something you'd necessarily want to do all of the time. I still clip the strings. I don't bother to unwind them from the tuning peg anymore. I used to, but that just takes too long. But what you can do as a compromise, you slack the strings a little bit so that, you know, they feel like the tension is less to whatever is comfortable. And that way, when you do clip the strings, you're not exploding quite as much force. Boop, boop, boop. But there we go. I'm going to put Worth strings on this one. I got a new batch of Worth strings from Messiah over at the Worth Strings factory operation fishing line cutting place. I don't exactly know, but he's always been super lovely to deal with and has always sent me strings when I needed them, so super appreciate that. Shout out to the guys at Worth Strings. And yeah, we'll be putting those on. And credit where credit is due. The Worth strings now come in paper sleeves, which I think is great because ukulele strings, as far as I know, don't deteriorate at all from the environment like guitar strings might. So there's no reason not to put them in paper. And Worth strings for the longest time came in a plastic envelope and then plastic sleeves, and it was just kind of gross from an ecological perspective. But they have changed, and I really appreciate that. I've been using the Worths lately because I'm getting short on the Uke strings. And I've been gigging a lot more, so, and I don't know, I really like Joel's strings, but sometimes the A can be a little bit finicky and it can be wearing out, and I've been playing enough gigs that I don't want to have to deal with that, but hopefully, when I try the Uke stuff again, that'll be a rectified problem. And not that it's a problem all the time at all, but it's just like that every fourth time or whatever that you put them on, you get one that kind of frays. It can be a little bit frustrating and can kind of slow you down. Since I'm talking here, I'm going to go the whole 9 and clean everything up a little bit. Let me get a rag. So yeah, I tried to make a podcast yesterday, I guess it was, but it came out sounding kind of snotty, and I don't like to present in that way. So I decided, no, we're just going to scrap that. I'm not so attached to the idea that I have to put that out to the world. And so I just don't have enough time to get everything done. I'm getting ready to head off to Uncle George's workshop. I fly out early tomorrow. I got to leave at like 5 o'clock probably to get to the airport and get the car situated and get all my stuff checked in. But I'm flying Mokulele, so it shouldn't be too tricky. That's just the little Cessna prop island hopper plane. And used to be, I don't know if it still is, but used to be that it was way easier to fly with a bunch of baggage with them, because they'll let you bring pretty much as much room as there is under the plane. You can take all of it if you're willing to pay for the bag fee. So it's an easy way to get plenty of instruments around. And it's easy peasy. I find it very charming. Some people, the small planes freak out, but I don't know. It sure seems like they land a lot more of those small planes in the water than the big planes. So as far as island hopping goes, when you're flying across the water, I kind of like the little planes. Worst case scenario, you can open the door and bail out. No big deal. It's the ones, I think they do the skydiving out of that style of plane, but these they've just retrofitted for passengers. But the side hatch door still opens up if you were to crank on the handle. It's a very intimate experience. I'm just wiping on both sides of the frets here, trying to clean things up nicely. I don't know if I have any lemon oil kicking around anywhere. And I certainly don't have any kukui oil, which I was using. I think last time I did it, I used kukui oil. Oh, I might have some, actually. Which is really nice. It's a local oil that we can make here in Hawaii. And I think that's... I haven't noticed any kind of difference on the instrument. It might get a little bit funkier. But if you're playing all the time and you keep things clean, it's not a problem. If it is, let me know, Chuck. But this is mostly just it doesn't change the feel of the ukulele that I've noticed. It's just an aesthetic thing. So it looks nice, but going to hang out with all the heavy hitters, so we'll try and make it look nice and pretty. Had a couple of gigs this last weekend. I played at a wedding. Like, oh yeah, we got a wedding gig. It's going to be down at the farm lots. With our group Sweet Kani Lehua that I play with. Uncle Kioki Kahumoku, Uncle Stan Melemai, and my friend Larry Miller from YPO. He plays upright bass, and Kioki plays the slack key. Stan kind of took my spot as the ukulele player in the group, so I was playing steel guitar. It's fun. It's a super authentic Hawaiian sound. But we rolled up at the gig, and I walked in and I recognized a whole bunch of people right away. It's like, what's happening here? And then I got further in and I saw the sign for congratulations to, and it was somebody I knew who was getting married. And it was very much a small town moment. Everybody thought it was pretty funny that, it's like, oh, you just thought it was a gig? It's like, yeah, I just thought it was another gig, but I just happened to know most people here. But it was a nice time. It was a really, really nice ceremony. Lanakila Manuel was there, and his halau danced for the ceremony. He's kind of got. I saw one of his other weddings. I mean, not that he does weddings, but the people who have gotten married are in his halau or have been in his halau. So he does a special ceremony for them, and it's kind of it's like Hawaiian new school, but there's no I do or anything. They said their vows, but it was mostly the hula was kind of the sealing the deal kind of thing, and it was cool. The groom danced with the halau group, and they do kahiko stuff. There's no awana dancing or new style dancing at all. It's all traditional old school, which is really great. And but the groom danced with the halau and with the group, and then the bride came out and they lit a bonfire, and she danced in front of the bonfire, which was pretty cool. Not so good for Kioki because he has asthma. He was sucking on his inhaler, trying to not choke on all the smoke that was blowing our way. But it was beautiful kind of a service, and she did her vows in Olelo, Hawaii, and it's just cool to see that, maybe my peers are finding other ways to express that commitment as opposed to feeling like they need to do the normal traditional kind of marriage, which is good for some people, but otherwise, sometimes that's not the right thing for everybody. I don't know if I'm using the right kind of rag here. This seems like it's taking extra long, or I'm being super duper meticulous. Might just be being meticulous. But yeah, heading over to Uncle George's workshop. We got some new faces. Kimo Hussey is going to be there for the first time, I think, ever. And Daniel Ho is going to be there. I don't know if he's ever taught there before. I know him and Uncle George have worked together quite a bit in the past. They do shows in California and stuff when Uncle George goes on tour, and Daniel produced all the Grammy-winning Slack Key albums recorded at the Slack Key show. But I don't know if Daniel's been to teach at the workshop. If he has, it was before my time when I was there or paying attention to what was happening at the workshop. And I've never really talked to Daniel. I saw him perform once with Herb in San Jose, I think. Super random gig to roll up on. So I don't really have a connection there. I do know Uncle Kimo a bit. He came to one of Uncle Kyoki's workshops in Pahala. It would have been 08 or 09 probably. It was like a short one. It wasn't the full week-long workshop. But Uncle Kimo came for a few days. And it was wonderful. He was kind of like, I remember, like this was before the ukulele had really super blown up. And Uncle Kimo was already like really thoughtful about how he taught the ukulele, because he always broke it down so it was left hand and right hand, and you never try and learn them right away at the same time. You separate it. And that was kind of a epiphany for me, certainly as a young kid learning to play and a student. Like, oh no way, you practice your left hand stuff by itself and then you practice your right hand stuff by itself? That's crazy. But really looking back, seems like he was kind of like ahead of his time in thinking about how to teach effectively and doing things that are helpful for the student, and not just like, well, just do it this way, but really thinking about how things can be approached. And so that's cool, and hopefully I'll have a chance to talk to him and interview him for the podcast, and I would like to ask him about that. And also I remembered I was looking through the newsletters for the workshop, just kind of seeing what had been sent out to the students, and was reminded that Uncle Kimo helped edit Hemele Aloha, the blue songbook that everybody uses at Kanikapila. He helped edit. I don't know I assume he helped make sure the chords were all correct, which they are. I don't recall any chord errors in that book. It's incredibly accurate for the amount of kind of the range that it covers, all kinds of different songs and styles, and everything is pretty much spot on. So huge kudos to the editing team and everybody who worked on that book. It's such a legendary resource. Can you hear that? Brub, 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 brub. Those are my frets. You don't really notice it when the strings are on, but once they come off, you can see the divots. They're quite something. And I know that Chuck saw what I did to my Kamaka. And he was like, I'm putting the gold ones on. You'll never destroy these. And I think I did. But that's okay. This instrument has been absolutely wonderful. It's been a total champ, and hopefully I can get it refretted. Chuck seemed to think that Kylan Reese would be the guy for the job, and so I guess I got to go to Oahu sometime and look him up and try and open up that connection. But we were also talking about putting a pickup in the other Mobetta, which I think would be great, because then I could be playing that out, and this one wouldn't have to work as hard. But we got at least one more week. One more week to get through. I need a rag. Okay, kukui nut oil it is. I found that I do have a little bit. We'll dribble some on and smear it around. Kukui oil is what they use to polish poi boards and stuff. So it's a really nice wood oil. I don't know if it is sanctioned by the general luthier collection, but it's nice. Makes it shiny. And if you want a real treat, you rub it on your face. It's a super nice skin oil. Should put some on the bridge too. Also this weekend I played at the Hamakua Harvest Farmers Market, which is always a nice time. Just kind of background music for the folks shopping over there. And once again, I played with Larry and Kyoki, but just as a trio, which is cool. It's really nice to play with people in different configurations, because it can get kind of boring if you're like always doing the same thing. But as soon as you sort of change up what you do, it kind of becomes more interesting. You play different songs, you know, the repertoire changes, because if there's one less guy, then you got to fill in that many songs, and so new things come out. And I played ukulele for that one, which is always a treat. I love playing ukulele with Uncle Kyoki. And we I don't know. I mean, he's one of the longest mentors that I've had. And is really the reason I've probably succeeded at music, or, you know, stayed with it. And so we kind of have a good connection, and it's just such a treat to come full circle and to be playing music with him after all these years. Just world class, that guy, and just humble and happy to come play some songs. And I think he enjoys that we enjoy playing with him, kind of a thing, which is, you know, funny to say, because he's, like I said, he's a world class Hawaiian performing musician. But they're just Big Island's small, and there's not always that enthusiasm for the music. So most of what we do is to feed our own souls, and not necessarily for fame or glory. That looks okay. I don't know if it really needed more oil, but I might have taken a little bit. If anything, it's cleaner than it was. If I wasn't lazy, I'd throw up a camera so you could watch this, but it's kind of nice to not be staring at the studio lights. That kind of gets old on your eyeballs. Okay. The rest of it we're just dusting. Okay, so I took all the strings off, and so now the saddle is loose, which is fine, but you got to make sure that you get the strings on so that the tension on the saddle isn't cockeyed sideways, because otherwise the pickup will act funny. So a lot of times what I do is I do the two outside strings so that it holds. So I got to get a G. So here's my trusty KF95A. This is one of the questions I get asked the most out of everything. What low G do you use? What is that one? It's the KF95A, and you get the A because the A is long enough to do 3 strings on a tenor. If you get the normal one, you get only 2 with a bunch of leftover, but not quite enough to do 3. Or it might only do 1. It might only do 1 and you have not quite enough left over to do 2. So that's kind of frustrating and annoying. So it's just easier to get the 2 meter one because that's enough for 3. But yeah, this one, it's kind of funny. I was looking at the package here, and like it's been 15 years I've been using these worst strings at least, and it's still .0358. It's the same string they've been using this whole time, and for as long as I can remember, it's always been just a little too thin. And the other extra heavy one is way too thick, way too heavy. So this Savarez kind of splits the difference. It's actually... it's a little bit heavier, not much. 0.0374. I don't know if the material's slightly different so that it's a little bit more dense too. Or maybe it's just that little extra bit of diameter that helps the tension get to where it needs to be. But either way, it's really nice. Oh my goodness, I'm forgetting how to even put strings on. Gotta come back and do the lock wrap so it stays put. There we go. And so I usually just do the outside ones kind of loose, get them on, and then I tighten them up and kind of alternate back and forth. Okay, let's see what the new Genworth strings are like. Hopefully they haven't changed. I mean, I guess if they have, it's fine. Hopefully it's better. But I don't see why they would, honestly. I had my chord change workshop on Saturday before the wedding gig. And that was cool. That was fun. I thought it went really well. If you're so inclined, you can check out the replay. If you can register for the replay on the store page of the website. But we talked about how to change between chords easier, how to kind of create that map in your mind of what fingers go where, how they move between the chords. Because it's not just like, oh, move your fingers. You want to think about what kind of movements each finger is making, whether it be like this finger is sliding on the same string, this finger is on the same fret but shifting strings, or these fingers are being completely added new, and there's a lot of mileage you can get out of just paying attention to that kind of stuff. So we talked about that and played a couple examples, and then talked about how to fret better so that you're not buzzing all the time. You don't have to press down as hard. And also how to hold bar chords better, because there was a question about bar chords. But yeah, it went really well. It felt like a good presentation, which, most of the time I'm able to at least teach things that are useful. But it's like anything, you're not always 100% on all the time. But I felt like this one was pretty good, and I guess kind of covered all the points elegantly. So what I'll do is I seat these outside strings is lift them up over the saddle and make sure the saddle isn't pulling forward and getting stuck. Make sure that it's pushed all the way down in the slot right on the pickup. Because any kind of binding or jamming, or if it's sitting off of the pickup element, it's going to be all unbalanced and it's going to sound a lot more unpredictable through the pickup. That low G still thumps and sounds kind of dead. But and the Worth one sounds good, but just trying to play it, it wiggles all over. It's too light. And that's the part that always blows my mind, how high that string actually goes. It always feels like it's gonna break. Okay. So that should all be seated, and now we just cruise on the two middle strings. This week I've got a pretty standard schedule, I think. Let's even see. I'll look at them right here. There's not a whole lot of new stuff. But I am teaching ukulele 1, which I just noticed yesterday, which should be kind of different. I don't think I've taught that in the past too much, at least not all week. I've taught maybe one or two here and there. But like the ukulele 1 classes for this workshop, it's like a track session. So if you're like an ukulele 1 player, you'll have ukulele 1 with me for 3 days in a row, kind of. They don't ever do it one instructor all week. You know, you don't teach ukulele 1 for 5 days or 6 days, however many, I guess it's 6 instruction days. Which is good and bad, because as an instructor, you can only get so invested in certain subjects and only work through so much material before having to kind of switch gears and go on to something else. But it's also good for the students because they get a couple different perspectives and different things, you know, different prioritizations of different skills that each instructor brings. So in that sense, it's good. But I have the second half of the week doing ukulele 1. And, you know, in a perfect world, I'd love to teach like super advanced ukulele, but also in the real world, there's just not that many super advanced players. And so in a way, it's kind of most fun to teach beginners because you can set them on a nice path where you can try and focus them on the things that really matter and encourage them to ignore the stuff that isn't so important. Because I'm always, I mean, I don't super duper pay attention to what's going on outside of what I do, but the little things that I see here and there is like, some people get really hung up on the wrong kinds of things. And I'm always surprised that there's like, wow, why is there so much emphasis on the circle of fifths or whatever? It's like, you know, for a beginner, that's like low priority. Even I, like, the circle of fifths, whatever, I don't care. It's not, I don't find it useful. I know some people do, and that's cool. But for me, I have to find it useful in order to teach it. And I don't find it useful, so I don't teach it. I figure you can do most of the things with that circle of fifths in different, easier ways. I was thinking the other day of like, my next workshop is going to be about modulating and transposing. And I was thinking about the classic old trick where you play like rotating seventh chords. So you play C7 and C7 leads to F. So you make F, F7, and F7 leads to B flat, and then B flat 7 leads to E flat, and then E flat 7, like that kind of thing where you work your way around. That exercise is the only place where you would like use the circle of fifths in a straight ahead way. In my head, the way that I think about things. And otherwise you can just explain it in other ways that I think are more elegant and more simple and more to the point. But that one rotating, because the seventh chords, they work around to the fourth, right? And if you go around the circle of fifths the opposite way, it's the circle of fourths. So that kind of was like, oh yeah, well, that's one use for the circle of fifths. But otherwise, it's not worth using it for one thing that it does well if nothing else is super useful. I'm a little prejudiced, but that's just my opinion on that. I don't know. I won't be teaching the circle of fifths to my ukulele 1 class. Let's put it that way. But I will be teaching them things like timing. Try and get everybody counting. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the joke I always have with Herbo to Junior. Like, oh, what are you teaching this year? 1, 2, 3, 4. Count. Damn it. Count. It'll be sad not to have him at the workshop. He's like the character guy. I'm going to have to step up my character role because all the characters won't be there this year. I've got a groove ukulele class, which will be, that one's really fun in person because I can use my 8-sided dice and we'll go through creating different strumming patterns using those randomly generated numbers. Did that last year and everybody had a super great time. We were all kind of cracking up. So that was cool. Looking forward to that one again. I've got my dice packed. That's not something every ukulele instructor puts in their bag. Usually they have a tuner and their handouts. And now they settle in, and we hope that they're all top-shaped cherry by tomorrow night when I have to play a show for a couple hundred people. I'll just be tuning the whole time. That's okay, it'll sound good. And it'll be really nice. Okay, and then once you tune up, a lot of times you notice funny buzzes and stuff that wasn't there before, and you have to go back and make sure you trim your strings and then double check that the buzz actually goes away. Uh-oh, I lost one. Okay, that's the bridge. Those tend to buzz more than the headstock unless your luck is really bad and something's touching on the headstock. That one. I wonder if that's a cable. I've got a playing together class, which I think I'm teaching with Brad Bordessa, who hosts the Slack Key Show now, or co-hosts, or whatever they call it. That's always good fun. He's a really amazing musician with like the sound, super old school. Like he sounds old school Hawaiian. I mean, he is old school Hawaiian, but he especially sounds like that style, which is really, really great because you have all the Kalani Pe'as and Kuana Torreses, and that's cool. Like it's cool that Hawaiian music is doing different things, but also like there's not a lot of people playing like that old sound Hawaiian music, and that's what Shim plays, and he does a fantastic job. It's just a treat to hear him play anything, let alone hear him play at the show for an extended amount of time. So we'll talk about playing together. I don't know, those classes are usually, we think they're fun and important, but a lot of times I'm surprised, like, the amount of people who don't come to those kind of classes. But also, a lot of people aren't at that point where they're thinking about playing together, and that's fine too. Sounds great. I think that this year there's going to be a lot of classes where I have less students than maybe I expect, because there's the new faces. Yeah, there's going to be like, ooh, what's Chemo teaching? Ooh, what's Daniel teaching? And so that tends to be, people say, oh, I'm sorry, I'm going to miss your class, but I really want to go. It's like, yeah, it's all good. I get it. I would go to Uncle Chemo's class too. It's fine. But that rotating sevenths thing, you just start somewhere simple, like maybe G, G7, and then you figure out, okay, what is the 4 of the key of G? G, A, B, C. So you go to C, and then you make that a 7th. And okay, what's the 4 of the key of C? C, D, E, F, F, and then F7. Okay, what's the 4 of F? F, G, A, B flat. Right, and you just go all the way around. And you get into some really weird keys. Getting there. Right, and then you're back to the beginning. At which point you retune your ukulele again. Great. That's it. Now I just gotta come back to them a couple times today, tune them up, do the same thing tomorrow. I'm gonna have a lot of time to kill tomorrow because I fly out early and the show's not until the evening. So get situated and probably just jam some music, think about some classes, get things dialed in. And yeah, so if any of, I'm going to post this today because it's not an actual episode. It's replacing the Saturday episode. Shame on me. But hopefully I will be seeing at least a couple of you tomorrow or the following days at the workshop. If not, there's always next year. Thanks for hanging out. Just rambling on. I'm the rambling man today. But appreciate you guys always tuning in to the podcast. Catch you next time, hopefully with some interviews with some new faces from the workshop. So yeah, all my best. Catch you next time. Hui ho.